trial 2. I'm only trying these to see if it's working and if I'm reaching anybody. I know that from the first one I did, I got 133 people that checked me out. Out of 133 people, only 2 were interested in doing a show with me. That was interesting. I would think that a lot more people would be interested, especially if they're trying to promote their schools or promote themselves. It is what it is. I've got other people, I've got musicians, I've got actors, I've got writers, so I could use them. But meanwhile, I'm going to start off by telling you a little bit about me, just to get you guys started so you could talk about yourselves. I was born in Brooklyn in the late 30s, and I was born in my Uncle Abe would tell me the neighborhood was called Pitkin Avenue, Hopkinton, Bedford-Stuyvesant, in that area. Across the street from where we lived, there was a little club. It was a storefront club. And the guy that worked there used to pull on my hair every once in a while, because I was maybe 6 years old. And the club was called Murder Incorporated, the Black Hand Society. The guy that pulled my hair was named Meyer Lansky. So that was my first meeting with somebody who was famous. Anyway, we then moved to Forest Sands Walk in Brooklyn, in Coney Island section. And Forest Sands Walk was a cross street called Nass Walk. And there was a lot of projects there, big buildings. To me, they were big. They might have only been 5 stories high, but to me, I thought they were maybe 8 stories. And we played stickball in the alley with a broomstick and a Spalding ball. And in that alley, while I was playing, there was a man all the way up on the roof. And I don't know why, I just happened to look up as he fell forward and fell right down and hit the ground at my feet, and his skull opened up and his brain splattered all over my pants. I don't know if he was pushed or if he committed suicide or if it was an accident, but all I know is that he was dead. That was the first man I ever saw dead at my feet. There was a bunch of kids around there, and they used to raise pigeons on the rooftops. The guy that was known for doing pigeons was a kid named Innie. We had strange names in those days. Innie, Vinny No Nose, things like that. And there was a little gang between a kid named Sandy, who had brothers, Manny, and Jerry. And I don't remember why, but they chased me through the streets. And my Uncle Abe stopped them. But before he stopped them, one of them, Sandy, hit me on the head with a brick, split my head. And he thought it was funny. The next day I found the brick and I called him over, and he came to look like ready to start a fight. And I hit him on the head. And we both shared the ambulance to Coney Island Hospital. By the way, down the block from us was a school called PS 100. I'm giving you these landmarks so in case anybody lived there, because it's no longer there. 5th Street, nothing is there anymore. Okay, so now let's move up to where my father deserted my mother, and he went to California to seek his fame and wealth. He was a bum. He knew nothing good about the man. And when he went to California, my mother, who was very religious and a good mom, followed him with me and my kid brother. And when we got there, as we approached the door, he came out with a rifle and pointed it in our faces and told us to take a walk. He was living in a place called Glenn Taylor Ranch, Glenn Taylor School. It was a school for boys that had 32 bedrooms, it had horses, it had a lot of things. So anyway, we left. And we went to a place called Richmond, California. And we looked for a place to live. But nobody would take us because we were Jews. Jews weren't allowed in that neighborhood in the 40s. So we ended up in a place called Easter Hill, which was by a place called Jack Newell's. It was an all-black neighborhood. I think we were the only white people in the neighborhood. We lived on the second floor in the projects. At that time, I had been going to school, which was a Lincoln or Richmond High School. But I was going to school there, because I went to Lincoln High School in Brooklyn. But I think this was also named Lincoln. I don't know why. So anyway, going to school, I had to go through an underpass, because that was the separation between the black neighborhood and the white neighborhood. And when I went underneath the underpass, a bunch of white kids, it's a gang, with this guy named Butchie, grabbed me, and they took a piece of wood with one of those penny nails, and they drove it through the wood into the concrete, which bent the wood into a hook, and took that hook and ran it through my right thumb, which Monkey's covering up right now. And then they took that hook and they ran it through my thumb, and they hung me on a fence. So there I am. I was just about 9 years old, 8, 9 years old. And I'm hanging off this fence and crying, because I mean, it was painful. And with my own blood, they wrote J-E-W on my forehead, Jew. So I should never forget who I was. And I haven't since then. But I didn't really know anti-Semitism in Richmond, California until that time. Coming up in Brooklyn, you were either Italian or you're Jewish or you're black. You know, there was no such thing. Or we didn't know anti-Semitism. Okay. So this guy Pete comes walking by. His wife's name was Pat. He was Hawaiian. He took me off the fence. And he asked me, "Didn't your father ever teach you how to fight?" And I said to him, "I have no father." So he took me off, and he took my hand, and he pulled it back like this. And he put it by my side, protecting my ribs. And then he pulled it out slowly, rubbing against the side, and twisting it. He said to me, "This is a punch. You will come to my house at least 3 times a week, if not every night, and spend at least an hour or 2 with me. And I'm going to teach you how to fight." He was a master of Kempo karate, Hawaiian Kempo. What are you laughing at? And I did that. I spent the next couple of years with him. But in between the time I was learning with him and I was learning how to fight, and the kids didn't know this. No one knew it. I'm living upstairs on the second floor, and everybody knew my mother was 28 years old, I think, at the time. And she was young, and she was a nice-looking lady. And we used to get ice, big cubes. You put a thing on a cardboard on the window. It said 25 cents, 50 cents, 75 cents, $1. And that's how much ice you would tell the iceman to give you. And they would deliver seltzer and to our house, and milk to our house. When you took the top off, it was all cream. And then sometimes, well, anyway. Here I am, trying to do homework on a wooden floor in my house. And the door would open up this way, and I would be behind the door, so nobody could see me. It was like camouflage. And this guy came up because he heard my mother was a young woman alone, didn't have a husband, didn't have a man. So he came up, and when my mother saw him, it was a big room. It was used as a living room and a dining room, and right straight across was the kitchen. She pulled out the ice pick because she was chopping the ice. But I saw she was scared, nervous, but brave. She was going to protect me. My kid brother, I don't know where he was, because I'm 4 years older than he is. So if I'm 8 or 9, no, I actually was 10 years old. He must have been 6. Maybe he was in school at the time, or maybe with a friend. But the man came after my mother. And when he opened the door, he didn't see me. When the door closed, I was behind him, right behind his legs. And I saw my mother being frightened. So I threw my body against the back of his legs, behind his knees. And him, being drunk, he fell right to the floor. As soon as he hit the floor, I jumped on his back and I started banging his head against the wooden floor. And I kept banging and I kept yelling, "You leave my mother alone." And all of a sudden I saw blood all over the floor. Anyway, I stopped when I saw the blood. And he pulled out a long Bowie knife like in Crocodile Dundee. "That's not a knife. This is a knife." And he put it into my testicles. And that he had me on the point of the knife up in the air in my groin. It was very painful. He said, "You be a good boy. You protect your mother. Don't you stop, you understand? You'd be good. Protect your mother." So I went off that knife, and as I got off the knife, I came down with my forearm, smashed him in the head, and I cracked his head. And he was the first man I killed. So he was the first man I thought I killed. I didn't kill him. I just broke his nose. And then the police came, and I was hiding under a bed, and the bed slats were putting splinters on my head. And they took me away, and they yelled at my mother for being a miserable mother. My mother worked in a laundry. My mother did pottery. She did everything to keep us going. She played baseball with us in this lot that we had in the backyard between all of us kids. Anyway, I went away for a while. But while I was gone, the people in Brooklyn, my grandparents, mom and pop, and my aunt Sylvia and her husband Sammy, and my uncle Abe, put together a little funding. They took all the money they had, and they sent it to my mother to bring her back to Brooklyn. It was a rough road going back to Brooklyn. We had no food, no nothing. So what happened is my mother used to walk us through the grocery and tell us to pick up grapes or anything. Just eat, eat, eat. Because then when we got to the cashier, they couldn't tell what we had. And then she'd buy a stick of gum. And then with the money, at night, we'd sleep on the beach. And we'd light a garbage can to stay warm. Nobody bothered us there. But we came back to Brooklyn, where we lived at 4 Sands Walk. That was where I told you I had my head split. So, from doing that and learning martial arts with Pete, Hawaiian Kempo Karate, I was prepared for the next few years. And the cops thought I was a bad kid. So they used to take me to what they call the PAL, which was a police athletic league, and I'd fight in the ring, in the Golden Gloves. But by then, I was a fighter. That's it. So I started in 1949 karate. I came to America. I was one of the founding fathers of American martial arts. And I met all the other people that came after me. I met Peter Urban in Japan when he was working out with Masoyama, and he was a purple belt then. And I met some of the other guys. And that's about it for now. Now you start telling me your stories. Bye-bye.